uh, the editor here is basically using syntax highlighting similar to how we would have it in our ID, right? So all of the features, and let me also show you, if you hover on input keyword, you would basically get this, let's call this a tooltip or a prompt or a pop-up, which shows you the whole use of the input command. So read a string from the standard input, the trailing new line is stripped, uh, yeah, all sorts of information. Similarly, if you hover on print, you'll see the information for print. So these are code hints that you get, all right, inside your ID. So all of the features that you could expect from your normal ID is already present in your online ID. So it does not make a lot of difference, and you will never feel out of place. All right. Okay. What is the question here? So where will be the output saved after the answer? Okay, so basically here we are not saving the answer as such. We are just um, printing it out onto the console. If you want to save it in a variable and return it to a function, all of these things will come in later on. All right. Currently what we are doing, we're just taking input inside a variable called name and then printing out the name with a hi greeting. Okay, that's all we're doing here. So no storage or anything like that, but you could of course store it, and the name is like a variable which is storing the input. You could also store the result in a new variable. So all of those things can be done, not an issue. All right, so don't worry about that. Now for your next step, what I'd like to do here is demonstrate a program which takes it a step ahead. All right, so let's cook up a problem statement here. So let's say you want to, yeah, okay, let's say given a number, you're given a number and you have to print whether it is divisible by 3. Okay, so the problem statement is check whether a number is divisible by 3. This is your problem statement. Understood? Take a time, take some time to think how would you approach this particular problem. Use the mod operator. Yes. Okay. So let's start with talking about operators first of all. So, you know, we can write something like this. We've already seen this. 3 plus 2, and this will give us 5. All right. This you already know. So this is a plus operator. I'll change the operator to minus. This you know is a subtraction operator. 3 minus 2 is 1. You know, this is a multiplication operator. All right. So 3 into 2 is 6. Okay. And this is a division operator. 3 divided by 2 will be 1.5. Okay. So these 4 operators, straightforward, not an issue at all, right? And for beginners, just remember multiplication in your notebooks would be written something like this, 3x or something like that, times symbol. But for all coding purposes and all computer science related purposes, your multiplication sign is always an asterisk. This is above your 8 key. All right. So there are some syntaxes that you'll have to remember here. So this is a multiplication sign. Similarly, there's another operator. If you have not come across this before, then let's talk about this. So there's an operator called a modulus operator. Okay. And this modulus operator is represented by the symbol percent. Okay. Now this percent in no way represents any percentage calculation here. This is a new operator which is just represented by the symbol percent, and this is called a modulus operator. Okay, now what does this operator do? So when you have a division, all right, 3 divided by 2 was 1.5. This was not a whole number. Okay. Now, if this is not a whole number, this means that this divided by 2 will give you a remainder, right? From your mathematics days, you have a quotient and a remainder when you have a division operation. All right. The quotient is what you get as on top, right? And the remainder is what remains after dividing it. So if I ask you, what is the remainder of 3 divided by 2? 1 is the remainder. Yeah. Because 1 times is 2, but when you subtract it from 3, 1 still remains. So that is your remainder. So you'll have to go back to your mathematics if you don't understand this. There's a quotient and there's a remainder. 3 divided by 2 will give you 1 as quotient and 1 as remainder. Okay. So the quotient, of course, is like the answer for your division, but the remainder, if you want to extract out of a division operation, is when we use a modulus operator. So 3 mod 2 will give us 1. That is the remainder here. Now, if I ask you, let's say 6 divided by 4, what will be the remainder here? This will have a remainder 2. Okay, fair enough. Let's say 6 divided by 5, what will be the remainder here? 1. Okay, now you're getting the hang of it. All right. So you can see the answer is 1. Now let's do this. 6 divided by 3, what is the remainder here? Okay, now the remainder is 0. Why? Because 3 divides 6 completely. And that is when we say 6 is divisible by 3. When the remainder is 0. That is when you say 6 is completely divisible by 3. Any other number that divides 6 completely? 2 also divides it completely. So 6 is divisible by 2. So you'll get 0 again. Now, the question was to check whether a number is divisible by 3. So we have to check the divisibility of a number by 3. All right. So we know that 6 is divisible by 3 because the remainder here is 0. All right. So if we could basically turn this into a condition wherein I don't want to print, but I want to check if the answer is 0. Make sense? If 6 mod 3 is equal to 0, then we can say 6 is divisible by 3. Does that make sense? Okay. So instead of print, let me just show you this. If 6 mod 3, how do we check whether it is equal to? You write double equal to, which basically is a checking operator. It is an equality operator. If it is equal or not. If 6 mod 3 is equal to 0, then we will do something. Okay. Now this then part, then we have to print whether it is, let's say, is divisible or not divisible or something like that. So now we could go to the new line and say print, print 6 is divisible by 3. Now have a look here. Isn't this print statement dependent on the if statement? It is not an independent statement here. We don't want print separate from our if, right? And yesterday we had seen blocks of code, right? With the indentation. This is the first scenario where you are going to, wherein you have to use a code block. Because if cannot stand on its own, and this print statement independent of if, it does not make sense here. So you have to make it a dependent print statement. And how do you make it? You first put a colon here, and then you go to the print statement and indent it with a tab key. There's a tab key on your keyboard. You just press the tab, and now it does not show any error. Why? Because this print will only work if this is true. Now, does this make sense? Okay. So now what this code means is if 6 by divided by 3 gives a remainder of 0, print 6 is divisible by 3. Okay. Now let's run this. Now no longer will you see a 0 here, but instead you'll see this message if this is true. And this is always going to be true. So 6 is divisible by 3. All right. So I'll take a pause. Let me know if this code block makes sense to you. This is called a code block because now you have an indentation here, and that is what we were talking about yesterday, white spaces. Cool. No one has any questions? That's nice. Okay, fair enough. So shall we proceed? Let's do the next step. Let's take the next step here. You have ideally hard coded the 6 divided by 3 code here. All right. Now what we need to do next is, I do not want to hard code 6. I told you the problem statement was given any number. So you need to take this number from the input of the user. All right. So now instead of writing 6 here, we're just going to take an input, which is x is equal to input, say number to check divisibility. Okay. Now do remember this input is going to be a string if we don't convert it into a number, right? This I've already told you yesterday. So this input needs to be converted into an integer and then stored in X so that it can behave like a number when I divide it. All right. And then finally, this X is going to replace 6 everywhere. So X divided by 3, if it gives me a remainder of 0, then I will say X is divisible by 3. Now X, because this is a variable, cannot go inside the quotes. So it has to be written outside and then like this. Okay. So this is what we want here. Any questions here? I simply replaced 6 with a dynamic number which the user will be inputting. No need to concatenate. We can concatenate, but I'll tell you what happens here. Is this what you're asking, Ankur? Yeah. In Python, what happens is this is an integer. The first argument is an integer. The second operand here is a string. Okay. Now, when the first one is an integer, second is a string, and you put in a plus command, it basically confuses the library as to what is it that you actually want. Okay. So in scenarios like this, you can basically use a comma instead of a plus sign. It also acts as a concatenation operator, but it also works in more number of use cases. X plus something, it basically is a confusing statement wherein plus could also act on an integer in a number addition. It could also work on strings as a concatenation, and you have both of them in your operands. So it's better to use a comma operator. I'll show you. This basically will give you an error as to integer and string addition will not take place in this way. Okay. So you have to use formatters and stuff. Let me show you this number to check divisibility. I'll put in 6 for now. And then you can see unsupported operand types for plus, int and str. Str is for string. So int and string on either sides is a problem. Okay, cool. So now let's just use a comma here and then run this. Okay. So you can see 6 is divisible by 3 because our x is now currently equal to 6. Now the same program I can run for any other number as well. 9, will it be divisible by 3? Yes. So 9 is divisible by 3. What our other number? Let's check. 99 is also divisible by 3. So 99 is divisible by 3. What other number can we check? 15 is divisible by 3. Yes. Okay. Now let's check for a number which is not divisible by 3. Okay. Let's check 5. Now 5 is not divisible by 3. What do you think will happen when I press enter now? Nothing will happen. No error, because we've not done anything wrong here that an error will arise. But what will happen is it will check for this particular statement if x divided by 3 gives a remainder of 0. Okay. It doesn't give a remainder of 0. So what next? It doesn't know what to do next, because this print statement will only take place if it was equal to 0. But here the remainder is 2. So let us see what happens when I press enter here. So nothing happened. The program just basically ended there, and it is done, because that is the only amount of program that you have written. Like that is where your program ends, right? So it's done, it is finished, it is complete. Now why not have a statement similar to this is divisible by 3, or if it is not divisible, let's also print out is not divisible by 3, because it makes sense to give a message here. Otherwise it could also mean that something went wrong in your logic or something did not work out. So you need to tell them that, let's say, if it is not divisible, print out a statement. So how do you do that? Whenever you have an if statement and you want to take care of the condition when it is not true, when this is not true, you could do that by writing an additional else clause. Okay, similar to how you write an if. So if this condition was true, do this print. If it is not true, again do another print. Now this another print will also be indented. If you see, this cannot be written in this manner, because this has to be a part of the code block again. So else print, let me just copy this entire thing. And just print not divisible by 3. As simple as that. Okay. And then let's run this. Check for 5. 5 is not divisible by 3. So there we are. There's a colon after else, but not after. We do have a colon here. You just missed it out. We do have a colon here. It is after the condition, because if has a condition, else doesn't need to have a condition. Else is a dependent of if, right? So if condition colon, then your dependent statement, then else without the condition colon, and then your dependent statement. All right. This is how you write it. So this is a simple program checking divisibility by 3. Okay. So this you can run for any particular number here and it will show you the result. 57 is divisible by 3. 44, let's say, is not divisible by 3. Any questions up till here? All clear? Okay, so before wrapping things up, this is a simple program. I'll just show you what else can be done here. Let's say the same thing, you copy pasted here, and instead of 3, you also want to check divisibility by 2. So just replace all the 3's by 2 here, and then run your program. You can see 6 is divisible by 3, 6 is divisible by 2. Okay, because, yeah, 6 is divisible by both of these numbers. 45 is divisible by 3 but is not divisible by 2. Make sense? So now you have converted this program to work out divisibilities by both of the numbers, 3 and as well as 2. What if you also want to take 3 as input? Of course you can do that. So then what you'll have to do is, let's say the divisor, you take it inside a variable called y. So just copy this kind of a statement here and call this as y, and number to divide by, let's call this, and then replace wherever you have 3, just replace it by y, and you're good to go. All right. and then just change the message from 3 to y here, and it'll work for you. Okay, so a lot of permutations, combinations you can work out depending on the problem statement here. But yeah, let's not get ahead. There are many beginners in the course. We have already seen that in the last class. So for all the beginners here, I'll wrap this up here, and let me know if any one of you wants me to repeat any part of it. Okay. I just want whatever I've taught in class today up till here, that should be clear. Okay. The colon part. Okay. Makes sense. The colon part. So there are some syntaxes to writing any language, right? So I'll just give you an example. When you write a statement in English, do you not always end a statement with a full stop, right? When you write a statement in Hindi, you don't have a full stop, but you have that viram sign that after the end of a statement, right? So you can, like, this is like, you cannot question how things are written. It's just like that. So syntaxes are something you cannot question why it is like that. But somewhere I've already told you, this is mostly for readability purposes. So whenever you have a code block, remember, whenever you're trying to have a code block, okay, something with an if or an else, and you're trying to write a dependent statement on that else clause or on that if clause, you always signify that dependency with a colon here. That's how you write Python. So to easily understand this, always remember a dependent statement which has a dependent which has an independent statement on top of it, like a parent on top of it. You just have a colon before the dependency starts. That's how you write it. Else, if, else, simply like that. There's no question of why did we choose that symbol or something like that. It just happens like that. That is how Python understands your pieces of code. All right, please show the program when both are variables. Okay. And why do we use double equal to? Okay, double equal to is a good question. This is just to check. This is a checking logical operator in mathematics. Okay, something like this. When you do, let's say if 4 is greater than 5, something like this. Okay, or I can basically, for now, comment all of this out or remove this. Print if 4 is greater than 5. This will be false, right? Now, you cannot write a checking kind of a statement with a single equal to. A single equal to is basically representing assignment. So x is equal to 5. That's fine. But this is not 4 is equal to 5. 4 cannot be equal to 5. But you have to check whether it is equal to 5. So there lies the difference. Then you will check it with a double equal to. Okay. So now if I run this, is 4 equal to 5? This will be false. But is 5 equal to 5? Yes. So this is just checking it. This is a logical operator. This is an assignment operator. Hope that makes sense. Okay. Please show that y part again. Okay, I'll just try to quickly do a simple replacement here. Number to divide by, this will be y, this will become y, and also we will have y here, and we will have is not divisible by y. Okay, now let's run this. And number to check divisibility, let's say 6. Number to divide by is 3. 6 is divisible by 3. Now let's check 6 and 4. 6, 4, not divisible by 4. This is how you make your divisor also dynamic. Okay. Cool. So this is mostly your demo class for today. Can we Google while doing coding challenges and assignments? See, mostly your coding challenges will not require you to Google because that's a time bound stuff and it's fairly simple. If you get it, if you get it. Assignments, it could take a bit of more time. So assignments, you could go ahead and Google stuff. That's not an issue. But even for your coding challenge, like if you're definitely stuck at some place, you're very welcome to Google stuff. That's fine. All right. Okay, guess then this is it. I'll hand it over to Megha. I think Megha is here. Yeah. So I'll hand it over to Megha to answer your registration related, course related, what are the next steps that you want to take. All of these kind of questions, feel free to ask her. And then after you have had your session with Megha, you can ask any industry related questions. Divyam will answer those for you. All right. So, yeah. Megha, you can take this over. I'll, if you cannot unmute yourself, I'll have to just a second. Yeah, Megha, you can go ahead now.
You have enjoyed 3 days of demo classes from Markesh. Python main batch will be starting from Tuesday, that is on 28th of April. Interested candidate can enroll for this 1 month bootcamp with very less course fees of 1,999. And this is an exclusive offer for all Atinu registered students. And there is a complimentary self-study JavaScript material worth 4,000 rupees for free to the students who make the payment before 12 p.m. tomorrow. At the end of the course, you will be receiving the course completion certificate. Okay, and I hope some students have already got the payment registration link. And if anybody have not received, I am posting it here. You can use this link to make the payment. And yeah, fine. And this is a contact number. Just a minute. You can call to this number for any query or any doubts. And this is my email ID. You can also contact me. Yeah, sure. We will also email you, Nidhi. Yeah, course will be starting from 28th. And for this 1 month course, there will be a no mentor or no TA for you people, and no placement assistant also. Can you hear me? And course timing will be Tuesday and Thursday timing will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday, Sunday it will be from 3 to 5.
Hey, thanks, Mega. Hey, everyone. This is Divyam here. Right. And I think, as she said, the classes will start on for this batch will start on Tuesday. I think 20, right?
28th.
28th Tuesday, the classes will start. All the other details have either been already emailed to you over the last 1 week, including the syllabus and the fee and all of these things. If not, then you can reach out to Megha on the number she shared, right? Okay. Sounds good. So yeah, so I can take any question which you might have about the software industry in general. So any questions? So I'll tell a bit about my background, kind of a thing, so that you all get the context and you can ask me the relevant questions here. So I graduated from college around 8 years back in 2012. Then I worked with Microsoft for some time in Hyderabad. Then in 2013, sometime I moved to US, worked with a startup over there, which got acquired by Uber. I worked in their SF office. We were setting up the growth engineering team. So after the acquisition, our team went and set up the growth engineering team. So growth engineering is the team which is responsible for setting up all the new user acquisition engineering insights, right? At that point, Uber was growing pretty fast. Uh, then after that, I did a short stint with the next billion users team at Google. This is the team which is responsible for Google Pay. It was called Tez at that point in time, right? So I've been in engineering for the last many years. So if you have any questions about this thing, about the industry in general, the software engineering industry in general, then you can use this Q&A session for that, right? Also, just I'll give you a brief context about why we are setting up this course, and to make sure that everyone is on the same page and understands the what it is and what it is not, right? So this is a 1 month, and all of this information has already previously been shared in various formats, including on the Google form on which you would have signed up, registered for the course for, right? So this is a 1 month part-time Python course, correct? So the idea is that over the last 1 year, we have started multiple batches for another course format, which is the main longer duration full-time course which we do. That one is a full stack web development course. It is a 7 month long, 8 hours of engagement a day. Like some of the students here, I think Atanu is registered for that course. So you can talk to him about it. But that is a lot more time commitment kind of a thing. So, but we have received a lot of requests in the past that if we can start a shorter duration course, uh, one second. If we can start a shorter duration course. So we have set this up. And the reason shorter duration course for people, who might not be able to join the full-time thing, or who might not be, for whatever reason, either they are in school or college, or they are working, or they are, have children, or whatever reason, right? But they want to get their foot in the door. So for them, we have set up this very lightweight part-time course with 4 sessions a week, 2 of them happening in the weekdays in the evening and 2 of them happening over the weekend, right? The reason we have chosen Python is because Python is an easy to pick up language and it allows you to do many things. So whether it is backend app development, you can write your backend server in Python. Whether it is data science, so you can use pandas and all of these libraries to crunch data in Python. Whether it is machine learning, so you can use SciPy and all of these libraries to write your machine learning models in Python, right? So it is a easy to learn language and it opens many doors for you, right? But so that is what this course is, right? What it is not, this course is not income share agreement course. This course is not a course which is your gateway into a premium software engineering kind of a job, because software engineering is by default, any career which you switch is by default requires a significantly longer commitment to learn those skills. In a 1 month course in a part-time environment, it's not possible, right? This is a beginner Python course. This is not a full stack web development course. This is not a course which will directly get you a 5 lakh job in software engineering, right? If it were that easy, then so I think there would be something wrong, right? So this is a beginner course, have been set up for a very specific purpose. It's not a full stack web development course, right? So I hope this clears the intention behind setting up this course, right? And what it is and what it is not. So I hope all of these, this whole context, so whatever is logically correct in this context is true, right? The context which I shared, whatever you can logically think to be correct in this context is true. For this first batch, we have also kept the prices to be significantly low so that no one has to think twice about joining it. Whoever wants to get into software engineering can join it. Whoever doesn't want to get into software engineering, they will not join it, right? So we have kept the prices also like that for this first batch. Yeah, so this is enough about the course. So we'll use the next 5-10 minutes to, if you have any industry related questions, which I can answer. If you have any other doubts about the course, then you can contact Megha. Acha. So Raftar, so this particular question, there's no such thing as best programming language, right? For example, in my life, I've used Java at Google, I've used Golang and Node.js in the backend at Uber. I've used Python at the startup I was at, right? I've used C# at Microsoft. So there's no such thing as best programming language. It's like saying ki out of English, Hindi, or Tamil, or Mandarin, or Spanish, what is the better language, right? When you say ki what is the best programming language out of Python or .NET, I would definitely say that .NET is not the best programming language. That much I can tell you. But between Python or Golang or Node.js, which is the better programming language, it's like saying ki between English and Spanish or Mandarin or Tamil or Hindi, what is the better language, right? So it does not make sense. It's kind of like that. .NET is something of the past. Yeah, no one uses it anymore. It's only companies which wrote their first piece of code 20 years ago are still using .NET, or who are stuck in that Microsoft environment are using .NET, right? But otherwise, you won't find any startup in the last anyone who has started any project within the last 5 years will not be using .NET pretty much. It's like saying, why doesn't anyone use Fortran, right? No one uses Fortran because the newer languages, there's a reason why new languages keep coming up every now and then, because it makes your life a lot simpler, right? Fortran, to be able to do the simple stuff which Arkesh was doing in the screen share, in Fortran, it will take you a significantly longer piece of code. In C++ also, it will take you a significantly longer piece of code. In Python, it takes a lot shorter piece of code. You can learn it fast, you can get it done fast. So that is how new languages get developed, that they allow you some advantages over the other older languages. Any other question? Data science knowledge also requires Python. Yeah, so as I was saying, data science, so data science typically, let's understand what data science is first, because I think it's a word which is thrown around too much and generally people don't understand what it is. So data science means that you have a bunch of data, like you have terabytes of data. Terabytes of data is a huge amount of data, right? Like think Amazon or Uber or Google Scale or whatever, right? And you need to analyze that data. You cannot have a person sitting at it and telling you what to do based on it. So you need to be able to write a piece of code to analyze that data, draw insights from that data and tell you what to do, essentially, right? So that is what data science is. General beginner data science person would be up to a decent level would be using something called a Panda. There's a library in Python called Pandas. So generally majority of the people would be using that library. They would be cleaning up their data. Then they would be applying different functions from Pandas, iterating on it to figure out those insights. So almost all the data scientists you'll talk to, they would know Python. The starting point is generally Python for that. When the full stack developer is going to start? Again, like all these course details, you can ask Megha. But this particular Q&A is not the best use of time for these course details. So you can call Megha. You have a number, and you can ask her those questions. Any other question which I can answer? Cool, then sounds good. If there's no other question, so then yeah, what the demand with data science? Yeah, these are two very different fields. Data science is very different. Full stack web development is very different. Let me think. It's like saying ki, which has a more demand. Do apples have more demand or do oranges have more demand? It's like saying that, right? These are two different fruits. Similarly, full stack web development is different and data science is different. You know, if you fundamentally understand these domains, you'll know that these are two different things, and both have their demand. It depends on what you want to do, right? Both are domains which are growing fast. So I think the whole context over here is that over the last 10 years, two things have happened. One is ki, three things have happened. More and more people are coming online on one side because internet penetration is growing. Like right now, we are using Zoom to sit at our homes in this whole lockdown and using it to communicate. So as you can see, that internet is penetrating a lot. So around that, many applications are being built. Right, Zoom is an example, WhatsApp is an example, or whatever application. Uh, then more and more businesses are using technology to be able to solve their business use case to bring in efficiencies, right? Like Uber used a piece of technology to bring in efficiency into the taxi market. Amazon used a piece of technology to bring efficiency into the whole retail market, right? So more and more businesses are using technology to bring efficiency into their own business domains. So that is one part. The second part is ki when more and more things are happening online, so more and more data is getting collected in a digital format, right? So now this means ki there's a demand for both. There has to be a person, there have to be people who are going to build these applications. So this is where a full stack developer, backend developer, front end developer, systems engineer, all of these people come in. The second piece is ki a platform like Amazon or a platform like Google or a platform like Netflix, a platform like Uber is able to do a lot of optimizations based on the huge amounts of data which they collect, right? For example, if you take an example, you must have all seen that Uber car has this price which goes up depending on the demand, right? If there's a lot of demand in the area, but if the drivers are less, then the price automatically shoots up. And sometimes they're also able to predict in advance ki, on Saturday night there's going to be a lot of demand in MG Road area in Bangalore. So in advance they will send drivers over there, right? So that is a part of data science, ki where they had all of this data in online format from the past, and now some data scientists ran something or built something on top of it, then they were able to get this insight. Similarly, in your YouTube or Netflix, you see all these video recommendations based on what you have watched in the past, right? So all of that is a combination of data science and machine learning. So in short, both of these have a lot of demand and scope in future, but you can't really compare the two because comparing them would be like comparing apples and oranges, right? For non-IT branch students, where should we start with? Like whether Python just can yield us a I think Mallikarjun, I've answered this question, right? Ki, which stream are you from? Mallikarjun, what is your stream? Like, what is your background? What have you studied or done in the past? Yeah, you. Mechanical, yeah. So think of it like mechanical engineering, right? There are multiple courses which you must have done in college, right? Rotational, starting with the whole Newtonian physics, and then the whole rotational dynamics, and then fluid dynamics and whatnot, right? So once as you study, as you keep studying all of these things, that makes you a better at mechanical engineering, right? So similar thing goes in software engineering as well. Python is a good entry point. That is why we have set up this course. It allows you to explore multiple things in future. It might or might not get you some kind of a job in future, because Python in itself might or might not get you some kind of a job in future. This is only a 1 month course, 1 month part-time course, only 4 classes a week, right? That two in the weekday in the evening, two over the weekend, right? So in a 1 month, you can't expect to learn something and get a very high paying job after that. This is a good, one of the best gateways into software engineering we could think of, right? Python is a versatile language, allows you to do multiple things. Think of it an equivalent of your, mechanical engineering second or third year, one of the common courses over there, which is essential to get into mechanical engineering. It's like that. And then over time, depending on your own both inclinations as well as the market opportunities, you can decide whether you want to in future do data science or web development or machine learning or whatever you want to do after that, right? Job role of developer in backend of full stack. Short, please, sir, from you. We want to know as you have. So yeah, I'm guessing the question is what is a full stack developer and what is a backend developer and what is a front end developer? Is that the question? That is what it seems like. Okay. So whenever, let's say you are using Zoom, right? So Zoom has two parts. One is what you see on the screen. That is one part. That is called the front end. The other is the machine on which all the processing is happening in the backend, right? Might be a bunch of it will go over your head right now. But generally for any application, there are two parts. One is what you see in the browser. One is what you see on the computer. The second is that there are huge data centers, warehouses where there are many CPUs and servers where a lot of processing happens, right? Where a lot of magic kind of happens. So that is the backend, right? Front end is what you see on your screen. Backend is what is happening in that data warehouse. Front end, back end, so person who works on the front end is called a front end engineer. Person who works on the back end is called a back end engineer. And then even within backend, over time, you can have multiple specializations. One person might become a systems engineer, right? They'll be excellent at dealing with things. I think a lot of this will go over your head right now, so let's not get into that. But a full stack engineer is someone who knows both front end and back end. That is what a full stack engineer is, right? They know how they can work on front end pieces as well, and they can work on back end pieces as well. Shahid, I think this again course I think enough has been covered about the Python course already, and otherwise then you can talk to Mega. Do I require to get into software? Puneet, our estimation is and again, getting into software development, it depends on what you're looking for. Similar to getting into any domain, there's a whole spectrum. It depends whether you're looking at a 5,000 a month job, whether you're looking at a 10,000 a month job, 20,000 a month job, 1 lakh a month job, 5 lakh a month job. It depends on what you're talking about, right? So getting into software engineering could mean a whole lot of different things. What we have been doing for the past 1 year is that we have this 7-month course, full time, 8 hours every weekday commitment, and that has allowed us to take our students from 0 to a 5 lakh a year kind of a job, right? So now based on this benchmark, you can put it out there. How is the recruitment done in product-based companies? What entry-level candidates really? Again, yeah, I think I answered this question. It depends on the kind of job you're talking about. Let's say if there's a product-based company who is paying you 500 a month, right? So then they will just want you to be able to communicate and speak in English. If there's a product-based company which is paying you 5 lakhs a month, so then they will expect a very different skill set from you, right? So there's no generic answer to this because these are very different things. It's a whole spectrum. Our 7-month course is the course which takes a student from scratch to a 5 lakh plus kind of a job a year, right? But that is a full-time course, a lot of commitment, 8 hours a day. Yeah, this course is a good gateway into software engineering for people who cannot do that 7-month full-time course for whatever reason, like other commitments, time commitments, not comfortable, whatever it is, right? So this is a very entry level gateway into software engineering kind of a course. At the end, it will get you comfortable with Python, and then you can decide how you want to take it from there. Any other questions? नहीं यार, 2000 में तो we can't give you job assistance. And I think I made this clear, right? Ki this first batch, the second batch which will be starting for this course will be 8,000 rupees, because Geeks for Geeks has similar prices for similar courses. The first batch we are doing for 2,000 rupees because especially given this situation, we wanted to make it easy for people to enter. But yeah, in a 1-month part-time course, if your expectation is that you'll be getting a job assistance and all of these things, then your expectations are not kind of reasonable, right? Python is there in full-time course in module 2. Is it necessary to register for those who applied for next batch? I think, yeah, Kushal, I've answered this question already, right? Both of the courses have very different intentions. Both of these courses have very different intentions. So this is a good question, Puneet, which you're asking. Are we planning planning on launching other questions in future? Yes, in the long term we will, but just to be upfront about it, we don't generally launch many courses, right? This is the second course format which we are trying out in the last 12 months, right? So we generally, and this too because we got a lot of demand, right? So we generally don't launch many courses. We have one full stack web development course, 7 months, which we are happy with, our students are happy with. This is the second one which we are starting. We'll see how it goes. And based on that, in future, at some point, we might start other courses, but not, we don't have any plan at any point in future, any point in the immediate future, right? So yeah, so this course is purely because we have had students in the past who have said about that they want to join. They can't do it full time. They want a longer, shorter time commitment for whatever, college, school, job, kids, whatever. And they are very new, so they are also not completely sure about software engineering. So they want to get comfortable with Python. Python is a good place to start because easy to learn and allows you to do many things, right? React course, yeah, that is not for India though. React course is a very expensive course. It is a $500 course. It's something which we are launching in the US Canada market. It's a upfront paid course. It's not an income share agreement course. It's in the US Canada market, so it's not relevant over here. It's a very expensive course. BCom graduate, and that is also not for beginners. That course is for people who already know, who are already front-end engineers, have been front-end engineers for some time. The separate React course which you're talking about. Otherwise, we also cover React in the 7-month course which we have. Redmi 6, how do I get into an MNC? We don't know, yeah, honestly. मतलब क्योंकि generally in a full stack web development course, we go for product based companies. We don't go for TCS, Wipro, Infosys as a Tanu or someone can tell you. So I honestly don't know the answer to that question. And again, as I said, right, this course is not modeled to be a gateway into jobs. This course is started for a very different, with a very different intention, a very different reason. it's not started to get people jobs immediately after that, after this course. If you want, again, I'm guessing so right now we are also not marketing this course right now. For the next batch onwards, we'll start marketing it. Right now, we have just sent out emailers to people who have at some point or other in the past and registered in our process. So I'm sure that all of you would already know about the 7-month course, and you would know the placements, what we promise in that course, right? So this is a very different course with a very different intention. I think this is a very strong commitment, comment which you are making, Atanu. I don't believe that that is true. I don't think TCS is a bad place to work at. TCS is an excellent place to work at. It's just that different people want different things in life, right? Someone likes some fruit, someone likes some fruit. It's kind of like that. Right? Any other question I can help with? Sure, sounds good then. And Megha had already shared her contact information, so you can reach out to her for the course details. The registrations, I think we are closing on Sunday 6 p.m. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.